Hi everyone. Today's video is an important one because it's tying together the hypothesis I'm making about the dragon and the beasts and who they were. And I've always wondered about the quote in Revelation 2, verse 12 and on. And to the angel of the church of Pergamus write, These things saith he which hath the sharp sword with two edges. I know thy works, and where thou dwellest, even where Satan's seat is, and thou holdest fast my name, and hast not denied my faith, even in those days wherein Antipas was my faithful martyr, who was slain among you where Satan dwelleth. Now, I could never understand this. Why Pergamon? Why does Satan dwell in Pergamon? Why Pergamus? And I believe I've found the answer to that by following the story of the dragon in Revelation 12 and the woman and taking them as the characters that were in Matthew as being Mary, Herod, and Jesus, and taking the Herod family as the dragon, literally. I found that the last remains of the Herod family ended up in Pergamum, and that's the line of the family that can be traced to the Roman aristocracy. If you have a look in Revelation 20, you'll see that the Bible uses the term dragon, serpent, Satan interchangeably. They're the same being. And even if you watch my other video, my first video on the dragon being the Pharaoh of Egypt and the king of Assyria, also the story of Lucifer falling from heaven, when you consider that Assyria and Egypt and Israel were a third of heaven, each a third, and that's what the Bible tells us, then the story of Lucifer is one of these kings falling from heaven. The serpent in Genesis and this light being Lucifer, someone who was a shining star in heaven, is not associated with the serpent in the garden or the devil. Jesus calls the Pharisees whitewashed tombs and sons of their father, the devil, or Cain's children. He's referring to Cain, the adversary. Some people say that Cain was the son of Satan or the serpent. I don't know about that. I can't prove it. But Cain definitely was different than his brother Abel and Seth. And as Esau was different than his brother Jacob. And there's the two seeds, the two brothers, and this story and theme runs through the Bible. And it runs right up until this present day. So it says here, and he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which was the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. So, it's telling us that this dragon, this serpent, and devil and Satan are the same creature. So pretty much my whole understanding of this scripture in Revelation 2 has been a mystery, and it's either you just think it's a mysterious scripture, or you believe the contemporary Christian understanding of what this is, and that some evil spirit of Satan, I don't know if a big red devil, but whatever Satan is, an evil, is the antithesis of God. As in my last video, it said the philosophy of one of the early church fathers, the church in Lyon and France, believed was that God was a dualistic God, and that one side of him was God, the good side, and one side was Satan, the bad side. And that couldn't be further from the truth. There is no equal opposite to God. There is no equal evil being that's opposite to God. And I don't even believe the war in heaven story now, as the general church tells us that Satan corrupted 1/3 of the angels and they were thrown out of heaven, and that's how they were in the garden. I don't believe that at all, and I believe it's actually that story is referring, which comes from the book of Revelation, of course, to the Edomite people in Jerusalem at the time, and that third of heaven, Israel, his third, or the last final remnant of that third, which was the southern kingdom of Judah, was cast out of heaven, cast to the earth, as the other two kingdoms, Egypt and Assyria, had been previously. So I'm just going to look at a contemporary Christian view of what the Pergamon church actually means. I just randomly picked one, so it's not any specific church I'm making a point of. But their belief is the Pergamon, the compromising church, about 70 miles north of Smyrna, stood the magnificent city of Pergamon, one of the most important cities in the Roman Empire. The city boasted almost 180,000 inhabitants and was known throughout the world for its architectural innovations, including the Temple of Athena, the great altar to Zeus, and a library that held over 200,000 volumes. By the 1st century AD, Pergamon had become not only a key political center, but a major intellectual and religious center as well. A plethora of cultic philosophies and spiritualities existed there, but the religious landscape was dominated by the Roman imperial cult, which recognized the Greek gods but worshipped the emperor as god. Emperor referred to himself as a savior. The city was littered with temples, altars, and shrines, which raised money through elaborate feasts, festivals, and sacred prostitution. If ever there was a city, a pagan city, it was Pergamon. It participated in all sorts of perverse practices. Satan's throne. This is why Jesus says, "I know where you live, where Satan has his throne." He emphasized with the church in Pergamon because he knew how difficult it was to be a Christian in such a sinful and anti-Christian city. Satan did not literally live there, but there was a pervasive satanic presence in the place. The image of a throne was appropriate amid all of the statues and altars in Pergamon, and it would have brought to mind the throne-like altar of Zeus or the temple of Asclepius, the serpent god of healing, which was symbolized by a snake. Interestingly, the altar of Zeus still exists today. A German archaeologist, Karl Humann, began excavating the altar on September 9, 1878, and shipped it out of the Ottoman Empire and reconstructed in the Pergamon Museum in Berlin. Kaiser Wilhelm II celebrated its erection in Berlin in 1902. Adolf Hitler became dictator in 1934 and ordered construction of the tribune at Zeppelin Field in Nuremberg for his Nazi rallies. He used the altar of Zeus as the model for the Zeppelin tribune. The Führer's pulpit was in the center of the tribune, and Hitler used it as Satan's throne to carry out his diabolical work in the 20th century. I did say that this was a contemporary Christian article. Satan's throne is a reference to the ungodly political powers that persecuted God's people in Pergamon. They tried to force the Christians to accept the pagan religion, make sacrifices and offerings to the gods, and declare that Caesar is Lord and Savior. The only thing we know for sure about this man named Antipas was that he was a faithful witness of Jesus Christ and that he was martyred in Pergamon sometime before John's writing of the book of Revelation. There is a church tradition that says Antipas was the bishop of the church of Pergamon and had been ordained to the office by the Apostle John. It is said that the pagan priests went to the Roman governor and complained that the prayers of Antipas were driving their spirits out of the city and hindering the worship of their gods as punishment, and the governor ordered Antipas to offer a sacrifice of wine and incense to the statue of the Roman emperor and declare that the emperor was Lord and God. Antipas refused, so the governor said, "If you reject the divinity of the emperor, then that is the equivalent of rejecting the city of Rome." Antipas was sentenced to death on the altar of Zeus. At the top of the altar was a hollow bronze bull designed for human sacrifice. They placed the victim inside the bull and they would tie him in such a way that his head would go into the head of the bull. Then they would light a huge fire under the bull, and the fire heated the bronze. The person inside of the bull would slowly begin to roast to death. As the victim would begin to moan and cry out in pain, his cries would echo through the pipes in the head of the bull, so it seemed to make the bull come alive. Even in the midst of the flames, the early Bishop Antipas died praying for his church. Well, if they didn't know that much about him, how do they know this? Antipas did not renounce the name of Christ and modeled faithful Christian witness for his congregation. They followed his lead, and Jesus praised them for remaining true to his name. That's an awful lot they don't know about Antipas.
So it says that according to Eastern Orthodox tradition, according to the contemporary on the Apocalypse of Andreas of Caesarea, it is believed that Saint Antipas was Antipas referred to in the book of Revelation 2:13, as the verse says, "I know thy works, and where thou dwellest, where Satan's seat is, and thou holdest fast my name." According to Christian tradition, John the Apostle ordained Antipas as Bishop of Pergamon, and during the reign of Roman Emperor Nero. The traditional account goes on to say Antipas was martyred during the reign of Nero by burning in a brazen bull-shaped altar for casting out demons worshipped by the local population. So that would mean that Antipas died in the 60s AD, and that the book of John was written before his death. Nero died in the year 68 AD. So the book of John was written before that, apparently, according to this tradition, but I can't seem to find any information other than Christian websites of a brazen bull being in Temple of Zeus in Pergamon.
Even though Jesus praised the church of Pergamon for not renouncing his name, he still had a few things against them. Some of the church members had compromised their faith by engaging in practices that were not consistent with their faith. The compromise is explained through reference in the compromising relationship Balaam had with Israel in the book of Numbers in the Old Testament. King Balak of Moab could not conquer Israel with military force, so he hired the evil prophet Balaam to attack Israel spiritually by pronouncing curses. But when God only allowed Balaam to utter blessings, he advised Balak to attack the Israelites by seducing them into idolatry and sexual immorality. The Moabites overcame God's people by leading them into compromising sin. This is exactly what was happening to some of the members of the church in Pergamon. The cult of Balaam and a group called the Nicolaitans were enticing the Christians to compromise their faith by participating in pagan practices of eating meat sacrificed to idols and committing sexual immorality. So pretty much all the belief on the reason Satan's seat was in Pergamon was this temple of Zeus. This theme pretty much is in every single contemporary belief in what this means. I often wondered about this verse is why Pergamon? I mean, they're saying how evil Pergamon was and it was a very sinful place with lots of pagan altars, and I just can't see that if Satan was going to have his seat anywhere at that time, it would have been in Rome. You know, there were probably just as many pagan altars in Rome and evil going on there. It wouldn't have been any exception to the city of Pergamon. So I just want to give an alternative view to the temple, the altar of Zeus being the seat of Satan. And I'm not saying that the altar of Zeus wasn't part of being the seat of Satan, but associating the dragon and Satan and this royal family line, I am of the belief that the reason that Pergamon was the seat of Satan was because this is where the Herod family moved its power to after the fall of Jerusalem. In 66 AD, Herod Agrippa II lost his throne in the Palestinian Judean region, and he escaped to Rome with his sister Bernice. So he was the last Herod to rule the areas that were part of the nation of Israel. But that didn't mean that there weren't Herod kings on thrones, and there were still 2 kings in the area of Armenia Minor and Armenia, and in the area of Pergamon. So it says, when was the book of Revelation written and why it matters? The book of Revelation was written around 68 to 69 AD by the Apostle John on the island of Patmos after the Emperor Nero exiled him for preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. There is some speculation that Emperor Domitian was the one that sent John to Patmos, but some evidences say otherwise. Now, the Apostle Paul was executed in Rome in the year 66, around the time of the fire of Rome. And to me, it would seem obvious that the book of Revelation was written before the fall of Jerusalem, because much of the descriptions in it are about the fall of Jerusalem. It was informing the apostles and the converts to the philosophy of Jesus what was to come upon them and what they were to expect in the coming years. So Pergamus, a church dwelling where Satan's throne is. There is especially one feature of the church of Pergamus that stands out. It dwells in the city where Satan had his throne. This is highlighted in 3 different ways. One is mentioned first, I know thy works, and where thou dwellest, even where Satan's seat is. 2 is mentioned twice, both at the start of verse 13, as already quoted, and the end of the verse. Antipas was slain among you, where Satan dwelleth. 3, these statements are unique in the letters to the 7 churches in Revelation 2 and 3, and unique in the rest of the Bible. The key to understand this church is its physical geography in connection with demonic geography, so to speak. This ecclesiastical and satanic geography is significant, for the devils dwelling in the same city wherein the church dwelt affected the congregation spiritually. And here we have, again, turning this verse into a spiritual meaning rather than a literal meaning. So what does Revelation 2:13 say about Satan's presence in Pergamus? First, the devil dwelt there. Being a spirit, the devil does not need a house or a kitchen or a bed such likes. But he is said to dwell in Pergamus, in that when he was not on his travels. Really? I mean, why does the devil need to travel? He could just think of where he wants to be and pop up there. He doesn't need to travel to different cities. But anyway, he lived and abode there. He was present there personally more than anywhere else. So the devil's either a spirit or he's a physical being that lives in places. I mean, why does God need to live anywhere? He is omnipresent, and therefore the devil would be omnipresent also. So this second, not only did the devil dwell there, but he had his throne there. Literally, Satan's seat is Satan's throne. For speaking, his government, rule, reign in Pergamus. The devil exercised greater sway, influence, and power than in other places. The devil is the god of the world, this world, in that most of its citizens live and die in unbelief and sin, thus serving as and following Satan. But in Pergamus, he was even more powerful as the king ruling from his invisible throne. So none of this makes sense spiritually. The devil is either a spirit or he is a physical being that has limited powers. The reason I'm reading this is because the translation of throne opposed to seat, or seat means throne, and this is what this is pointing out. And it also just shows the church's opinion on this particular viewpoint on what Satan is clouds the mind of what the actual dragon meant. But also this article does go on to prove another point that I have. And that's not about the temple, the altar of Zeus, but about the temple of Asclepius. So what was it about Pergamus that indicates that Satan had his dwelling and throne there, or that he was especially present and powerful there? Pergamus served many idols such as Zeus, Dionysus, Athena, and others. It had many temples and altars, but this did not mark it out as Satan's throne, because all pagan cities in the Roman Empire at that time worshipped idols, including the other cities mentioned in Revelation 2 and 3. It was the prominence of its worship of Asclepius as savior, healer, and preserver that made Pergamus distinctive in this regard. Asclepius was a god of healing and health. He had an impressive temple and ruins, of which can be visited in Pergamus today. People used to sleep in that temple with the idea that Asclepius would give them a dream which would be interpreted by his priest, telling them how to be healed. The spring beside the temple was said to possess healing powers. Devotees would offer sacrifice or leave gifts for healing. Small terracotta body parts to represent the injured area or limb have been found near Asclepius' temple in Pergamus. Small wonder that Pergamus has been called the Lords of the ancient world. I just add too that actual spring was slightly radioactive, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of the treatment that today's Temple of Asclepius uses for cancer, which is radiation. One animal is especially associated with Asclepius, the snake. Asclepius' symbol is a serpent entwined staff, still used in the medical world today. At the dedication of temples to Asclepius, snakes will be encouraged to enter the building. Doubtless such a ceremony took place in Pergamus too. In honor of Asclepius, a particular type of non-venomous snake was often used in healing rituals. These were called Asclepian snakes. They slithered around freely on the floor or dormitories where the sick and injured slept. What is the Christian analysis of all this? This is devil worship through a false god, Asclepius, symbolized by a snake in Revelation 12:9, the great dragon or the devil or Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. That old serpent. This is reference to the devil's use of snakes in Genesis 3 to tempt Eve to eat the forbidden fruit, whereas death and disease came through. The devil using a snake, the worshippers of Asclepius ascribed healing and preservation to the serpent. How perverse, how demonic, how satanic. So, I'd like to add my opinion to this, and that is that there were temples to Asclepius in other Greek cities. So it wasn't just in Pergamon that they had this temple. But what they didn't have in the other temples was that the seat of Satan was not the devil spiritually living in this temple of Asclepion, although it's an evil place. It's that the Herod kings were in this city. I have shown you this in one of my other videos, but I'm going to go into depth into the genealogy of where they went today. So I'm going to start with Herod the Great, the first king of Judea. So Herod, his father was Antipater, his mother was Cypros of Nabatea. His son, Alexander III of Judea. And he had a son, Alexander IV of Judea. And his son, Tigranes VI, king of Armenia. So he had a throne. There was another king of Armenia Minor, and he was the husband of Salome. And his child was Alexander I of Cilicia. Okay, so Marcus Plancius Varus was the proconsul of Anatolia during the reign of Emperor Nero and the time that the book of Revelation was written. He is quite possibly a Herod, but if he's not, he married a Herod. So He was an Anatolian Roman noble who lived in the 1st century in the Roman Empire. His paternal ancestors were originally from Latium in central Italy. They had immigrated to Anatolia in the time of the late Roman Republic. Varus came from a local wealthy family who were prominent, and they came from an unknown town in Galatia. His family owned large estates in Galatia. Apart from this, not much is known on the family and early life of Varus. So he could have been a Herod, especially on his maternal side, because here it's speaking about his paternal side from Italy. He was the ruler of Anatolia. And Anatolia, also known as Asia Minor, is a large peninsula in Western Asia. So Turkey, this red section here. So Pergamon's up here. Cilicia is down the bottom. So that incorporates all that region where the Herods are ruling. So family. At an unknown date, Varus married the Herodian princess Julia, the daughter of King Tigranes VI of Armenia, and sister of Gaius Julius Alexander. Julia bore Varus 2 children, son Gaius Plancius Varus, consul during the reign of Roman Emperor Hadrian, and daughter Plancia Magna, who married Roman Senator Gaius Julius Cornutus Tertullius. Plancia Magna was a prominent patron and prominent citizen in Perga. Herod Carax was a friend of Emperor Hadrian. He was also a historian. We have Plancia Magna, and I'm going to tell you about her and her family. So Plancia Magna was a prominent woman of Perga in the Roman province of Lycia at Pamphylia, who lived in the 1st and 2nd centuries. During her life, she was not only a high priestess, but a member of the Decurio and a benefactress to the city, funding the restoration of the main city gates between the years AD 119 to 120. Plancia Magna was the daughter of Roman Senator Marcus Plancius Varus and the Herodian princess Julia, daughter of King Tigranes VI of Armenia. Her mother became a priestess and served in the temple of the ancient Greek goddess Artemis in Perga. So we have one priestess in the temple of Artemis in Perga. Magna married a Roman senator, Gaius Julius Cornutus Tertullus, Suffolk Council in 100, and his friend Pliny the Younger. So there's another historian. Was a lawyer, author, and magistrate of ancient Rome. And his uncle Pliny the Elder. Magna bore Tertullus a son, Gaius Julius Plancius Varus Cornutus. So if we follow their family line from Tigranes VI of Armenia, who was a Herod, we will see Alexander I and his children, Julia of Cilicia and Gaius Julius Agrippa Judea. So we go to Julia's side. So Julia of Cilicia was the mother who was the priestess of the temple of Artemis. Her daughter Julia Quadratilla Bassus. This name Bassus comes up a lot in future lineages of the Roman Herods, and this name Quadratus as well. So Julia Quadratilla Bassus, and her child was Claudius Charax of Pergamon. And this was the man who was an historian, a friend of Hadrian, and he was also a priest in the temple of Asclepius. Let's check his father's side. No lineage on his father's side. Caius Julius Lupus T. Vibius Varus Leovilus. So it's quite possible that on this side he was another Herod, possibly from one of King Herod the Great's sister or brother. Salome, he was his sister. His brother was King Herod the First of Judea. This is King Herod the Great. His sister Salome, the first of Judea. Faisal of Judea was his brother. He had another brother, Pheroras, the Tetrarch, but I think he died young. And Joseph of Idumea, another brother. So there's 3 potential lines of other Herods to come from here that could have intermarried back into the children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren of Herod the Great. So I think this is really important to anyone who believes in the apostles and what they wrote as truth, because it's showing that this dragon line is on the throne or on the seat of Pergamon, who is the ruler of Pergamon at the time that John wrote the Apostles. It also it shows that, as I said, by 66 AD there were no more Herods on the throne of Judea, but they were in Armenia and they were proconsuls, and their line went through into the Roman aristocracy. And eventually they sat on this throne that is part of the Roman Catholic Church via the families and the black nobility families of Europe. I think it's also really important that, given the situation we're in today, that this Herod was a priest in the temple of Asclepius. Because today we're being asked to offer our own lives on the altar of Asclepius by taking all these medical interventions that this system and these people are forcing upon us. It's ironic that at this time in history that our biggest problem at the moment is probably the medical system, and the medical system that was started on this temple of Pergamon. And I'm not going to go into detail about who Asclepius was today or what he stood for, because I've done that in one of my other videos. But I don't see how I can be wrong about this. You know, it's the irony of what the Apostle John has said in Pergamon. There is the leftover remnant of the Herod family who are in the temple of Artemis. They're in there, but mainly they are in the temple of Asclepius. They're priests and priestesses. They're ruling the province. And what I will show you is that they move into these royal families from this line. I can't prove any of the other lines that have disappeared in history or been deliberately hidden. There are other Herods, quite a few of them. As I've stated many times before, Salome from the John the Baptist dance had 3 sons, and I believe she had a daughter. There's all the other aunts and uncles of the Herod children who had other children that weren't recorded in history, and many of these other people, that these grandchildren of Herod the Great. And they make it, these Herods make it an art to marry within the family and to keep their wealth within the family. But if they marry outside of their family, it's generally as a political move to marry into a royal family or some position where they can take power of or control of within the Roman Empire. You know, since I've found this information out, I can't see the relevance of a mythical, spiritual being that resides in a earthly town, in a building. And I'm not saying that this altar to Zeus was not evil or bad things were done there, or people may have been sacrificed there. For example, they're saying Antipas was. But to me, this story of the Herods just fits like a jigsaw puzzle. And all this information's out there. I'm only reading other people's articles. But what I have done is, when I was reading this, I just got an idea that, or a belief or a feeling about something, and I've gone and researched it, and I've found it to be true. I'm connecting the dots here. So, okay, there's so many people out there at the moment who are picking on the Jews and saying, it's the Jews, and there's other people saying it's their Ashkenazis. And then we've got the Christian group saying, oh, it's the devil, there's an evil spirit that's tempting and tormenting people. What this is, yes, it's a certain group of people, and yes, today they are a minority of people, because there's minority groups that are gaining privilege from today's promotion of minority groups. The abuse of anybody that talks out about injustice regarding these minority groups, and this is referring to any minority group. The leftist notion of promoting minority agendas, and within those minority groups, the individual person is just deceived. They're not the person who is doing this to our world, to humanity. But by not speaking about the situation or speaking out against injustice, they are contributing to it. And that's what's important with this information, is that we need to understand how the mechanism works. And I'm looking this from a biblical perspective, and I think the Bible's telling us exactly how it works and who's doing it, and why they've tried to hide it for 1,000 years or more, and twist and corrupt the word. So what I'm doing, and what I feel like I've discovered here, is I can't go back to this Christian version of there's a spiritual being that's residing in a earthly town, that's his seat. It makes no sense to me. But I can see that there's a political system and a aristocratic family that have been manipulating positions in high places, as the Bible tells us, and they have created a system that uses us as slaves, and they are inheriting the world for their family, and they are the minority group of minority group. They are less than 1%, and it's these people who we need to point our fingers at and say no more. The people who we are saying are doing this, and yes, they are by being compliant, they need to stop being so sensitive, learn the truth, and save their family, because they are under attack as well. Their privilege is only gaining them favoritism while they're useful. They're going to be thrown on the rubbish heap, and they have been in the past. And I believe everybody who understands this topic knows exactly what I'm talking about. Because in the Second World War, there were quite a few of these people and their family thrown under the bus. And with the rest of us, because there were literally millions of people that died in that war for this 1% agenda. Okay, so I found this little search engine for historical documents, and when you put in Charax, which is Charax of Pergamon, Carax, you put in Carax of Pergamon, it comes up with the papers that have his personal name in them. And there's this one here, it's a translation, and it says, of Pergamon, a priest and philosopher. I found in an ancient book the following epigram about him, and it's in quotations. I am Carax, a priest from venerable heights in Pergamon, where once Telephus, blameless son of blameless Hercules, fought a war against city-destroying Achilles. So this translation of this historical paper is showing that Carax was a priest. And we know from the Temple of Asclepius in Pergamon that there's a marker stone there that says he was a priest, or it says that he donated money to have it built. So that just confirms that he was actually a priest in the Temple of Asclepius. So we have a family tree here of Claudius Carax, and highlight his name there. His mother was Julia Quadratilla Bassus. So this guy's a Herod Poly of Chalcis. And if we look at who his children were, we've got Aristobulus of Judea, Alexander I of Cilicia. So he's got the Idumean, Antipas of Idumea, Antipater of Judea. And on this side, he has the same bloodline. And this Gaius Julius Agrippa of Judea is Agrippa I, I believe, and he married into the Commagene, or the Parthian family, royal family, and this is where they connect in. So Herod Pollio of Chalcis is said to be the line in which the Emperor Vespasian came from. So apparently his Roman name shows that he was the father of Vespasian's mother via his first wife. So Bernice III of Idumea was his second wife. She was a lot younger than he was, and he had another wife, probably 20 years older or more, that is said to be this Roman Piso story of the Vespasian line of the Herods. I'm not going to go into that because that's a bit of a conspiracy or cryptic, and I can't prove that 100%. And I don't trust Roman Piso because of the Bruno Bauer link and the Rothschild link to that. However, this Herod Charax of Pergamon, this is a legitimate line that can be traced, and it still shows that the Roman aristocracy were interbred with the Herod family. Also, there's another name popping up here, Jason of Idumea. I've got no idea who this is. So there's so many offshoots of this family that could quite possibly have married back into the Herod family via Roman names that they come up as Roman, and we think they're Roman, but they're not. A lot of the Herods moved to Rome and to Italy and lived in different areas, so they weren't all based in Judea. So saying Jason's father was Eleazar Aruran of Judea. His paternal grandfather was Matthias of Judea. What I want to point out is that we want to start recognizing the change of family names. And they start to use this Quadratus Bassus. So this person here, Caius Julius or Iulius Quadratus Bassus. Julia Quadratilla Bassus. So these are all Herods. Here's another surname, Proculus. So this is what we're looking for in the early Roman Empire now, is the surnames that are related to this line of family, because this is where the Herod line seems to come from, is the Chalcis family into Rome, and they interbreed with all of the Roman families. So at the early points they mix with the Parthian royal family, but then they don't breed back into that family. They start marrying their own. And I just want to make a point that, so this is just a hypothetical, but if you have a child that is born to a French king and an Indian princess, and that child is half of each parent, then they marry their cousin that's full. So then they are 3/4 Indian and 1/4 from the French side. The next generation, it becomes 1/8. And then the generation after that becomes 1/16. So by generations, or four, like by the great 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 grandchild, that child is barely any of the family that comes from the French royal line, and is pretty much all from the Indian royal line. And this is how the Herods work. What they've done is they've married into these Roman family lines and other royal family lines through the area, the Parthian family line, the French Frank line, as far as I can find so far. And then once they do that, they then intermarry their children with their family's children. So cousins, aunts, uncles. And this is how these royal families have worked since. They always did marry family back to the Egyptian and the Greek aristocracy. But this family was very obsessed with marrying only into their own family line. And just like the royalty of Europe and the Habsburgs, for a perfect example, that everybody brings up of how they would only marry their family. But they've become a lot better at it because they realize, because of the Habsburgs, their deformities, birth defects, they've kept trace of their family lines, and they've only married into distant branches of those family trees. But they've kept it in the family tree. This is what I'd like to show and why it's so important. It is a bit boring, and it seems a little bit like just going through endless genealogies and branches of family trees going way back. But what we realize is that our entire civilization, the Holy Roman Empire of Europe, of Rome, since this time have been ruled by descendants of Herods. So I'm just going to just descend from these family lines down through to show the surnames they start to use and who is actually related to them. So we have this Bassus surname, Quadratus Rufus, so Marcellus, so Quadratilla Julia, and Quadratus, so that's Quadratilla is the female, Quadratus is the male. So these, I'll just go back and show how they're all linked in. Claudius Carax, so Claudius is his grandfather. So it's his grandfather on his mother's side. On his father's side, we have the Quadratus Bassus surname Rufus, and his father's, there we go, Polio. Polio is another name that they use. Asinius Polio. Yep, on this side too, Bernice, Princess of Pergamon. So we can see here there's Herods on this side of their family too. And as that gets further along in the Roman Empire, more and more, it is just these family lines. They are at this stage marrying into Roman royalty, Parthian royalty, and so there's sort of a bit of a mixture. So Bernice here on her father's side is from the Parthian genealogy. Let's go into the Roman Empire now. Caius Asinius Quadratus Protimus. So we have Bassus, this name here. And they start to use this name here. It seems to be related to the Parthian family. But once they start to have children, Quintus Anicius, and here's another name they use, Faustus and Paulinus.
While this name pops up, I just want to show you this person here, Paolo Lucio Anafesto. He was the first doge, I'm not sure how they pronounce that, of Venice, serving from 697 to 717. And
all of these 12 families that founded Venice were a powerful elite that were in the merchant trade. So a noble Heraclea. So a lot of the families of the merchant families came from this Heraclea. Now, whether they were of this Herod descent, I can't prove that because there's no genealogical records to show that. But look at this guy's name. His Latin name, Paulicius Anafestus. So it could be a coincidence. You know, a lot of people in the Latin Roman world use the similar names as we do today. People have same names, but all three of these names that are linking to a Herod ancestor. So we've got Claudius of Carax here, Julia Quadratilla Bassus, and this is where the Herod lines come in. Paulinus surname. Let's go have a look here. This ties back to the Julian line. So Julius Caesar, Julia Paula, Marcus Vipsanius, and he was Agrippa, but they say that he was Agrippa II was named after him. So I'm not sure if they are Herods. They quite possibly could be because there's no tracing their family line any further back. They're supposedly equestrian family, and the first mention of them is Marcus Vipsanius and his sister Julia Vipsania, and they had a brother Vipsania Agrippa. So this is we've got Nero. They marry into the Julian line. So this is where this Paul name comes from, and Faustus. And when we get a few generations in, we'll see that they've intermarried with these Herod families, and then they just keep within their family. These aren't 100% accurate, these genealogies, but they're the best, I guess, anyone could do with the historical evidence. So this Sextus Anicius Faustus Paulinus has family, we're going back to Polio. So this is the line of the Parthian line, but down here we've got the Herod line. So Tigranes VI of Armenia, where is he? He's not saying who his mother was. His father was Alexander of Judea. So there's all these Armenian bloodlines, Parthian as well as Herod. And they go back to Mithridates. And his father is Alexander of Judea. So here we go, Idumea. Herod, first king. Malichus of Nabatea. Who's that? So the Nabatean, and the Nabateans are part Edomite, Idumean, and part from the tribe of Ishmael, who was the first or the Egyptian son of Abraham. So we have Gaius Julius Agrippa of Judea, and his father was Alexander I of Cilicia. So Tigranes VI, so we know he has Herod on his side, Herod king of Judea, there we go, and also the Parthian priesthood and royal family, and Julia of Chalcis, we know who is the daughter of, we've got Aristobulus here, King Herod Agrippa I. So that's all Herod family. And on the mother's side, side is Julia of Commagene. She might not have Herod on her side at this point. I'll just check her parents out. So Mithridates, or Mithridates of Commagene. So this line ties into Cleopatra as well, and this so the Armenian royal line. And what we see here is these political beasts with the family royal heads on them, which I believe is the Roman side is the beast of the sea, and I think the Parthian side is the beast of the earth. And we have this dragon family interbreeding with both of these royal families. So Julia Cassia Lepida. So we know on the father side, guys, is all Herods and these other family lines. Mother, no tracing. So we don't know this Lepida family. They could be Herods. We don't know. They have changed their names to Roman names at this stage. Gaius Avidus Cassius. So we have Gaius, his father, Avidus Halidorus, and his mother is Julia Cassia. So we know that this is the Herod family line, as well as the other Parthian family line. We don't know this side. Let's have a look at the father. Okay, we don't know there either. I can have a look up the name. Gaius Avidus Halidorus. So he's on Wikipedia. He was an equus and noted orator who held at least 2 important appointments during the reigns of Hadrian and Antonius Pius. He was of Greek origin, but what we do know is too that there is a line of Idumean Jews coming from this Greek line who married into the Herod family. So the child was Volusia Laudis. Alright, Tinia? Tinia? Tinia is not a very flattering name. Quintus Tinius Sacridos. So that's her father's line. But on her mother's line, we have Herod I of Judea. And all these Chelsus Herods, as well as the Mithridates Parthian line. Quintus Tinius Sacridos. So his family line. Clemens, that's another name that comes into this. Okay, we've got the Rufus. Clemens. Possibly Herod related, I'm not sure. We had Herod families in Rome that were not of the Herod the Great lineage. They were from his sister's family. Son of Quintus Tinius Rufus. The evil, okay? Quintus Tinius Rufus, also known as Turnus Rufus the Evil, in Jewish sources was a senator and provincial governor under the Roman Empire. He is known for his role unsuccessfully combating the early uprising phase of the Jews under Simeon Bar Kokhba and Eleazar. So he's Place of origin is the Etruscan town of Volterra. So if we check out this Clemens, I'm not saying these family lines are Herod backed, but later on they start to use these lines because they've merged in with the Herod family line. Bassus, Bienus, Maximus. So there's 2 Roman emperors there. So these families are from around the time of Hadrian, Hadrian was a friend of Carax of Pergamon. Okay, so let's go on. Father's line is from the Bassus, Herod, Pactanius. Doesn't say. There are other family lines here too. I'm just tracing one. So Tarantinus, Maxima, Tarantirat, Taratinius. I can't say that. Maximus, Bassus. So we've got Herod Polio of Chelsis. On this side, coming through the mother, Flavia. That's a Flavian name related to Vespasian. So if we want to take the side of the, if Vespasian and the Flavians were actually Herods as well, then we have to factor in that there's more of these people who are actually Herods. Melita Tarutinia. Nicomachus is another one. Let's have a look at them. Quintanius. Flavia Thera. Quadratus. So there's the names there. So we can sort of know that they're coming now from a Herod background. Fastus, Paulinus. That is a Judean line, but it does tie in with the Herod line in another family branch. So let's go have a look at this. Vibia Galla, Imperial Princess of Rome. Gaius Gallus, Emperor of Rome, but he's got no family line of who he comes from. Let's have a look. So he died in 253. If we check out his Wikipedia page, we'll see if this is the same guy. 253. Trebonianus Gallus. Was born in Italy to a respected Etruscan senatorial background. It says that he's had a child. Vibia Galla as a daughter, and his son was Volusianus. So when we have a look at Titus Flavius Vespasianus, we have this family line going back to the Flavius, Josephus Flavius.
So I think I've discovered this line of who Jason of Idumea is. We have Jason of Idumea here. And it says his father is Eleazar Auran of Judea, whose father was Mattathias
Mattathias of Judea, John of Judea, Simeon of Judea, and Asmoneus of Judea. And although this isn't exactly the same, ironically, the family line of Titus Flavius Vespasianus have this line going back to the Flavius name, which has Josephus Flavius, Mattathias Flavius, and Amos Flavius. And I'm kind of wondering this lineage here and the similarity to the names, if they've got it a little bit out of place where they were not sons but brothers. Or we have Mattathias, we have Asmoneus, which is very similar to Amos, and we have after them Jason of Idumea. So let's check out Jason's family. He was the governor. His child was the governor Antipater, the second of Judea. Okay, Jason of Idumea was the great-grandfather, apparently, of King Herod. I'm not sure if these are in line, but it's a family line of King Herod the Great. Antipater, the second of Judea, was the father of King Herod the Great, who married the Nabatean princess, Cypros. Cypros, known as the Nabatean, the Edomite, was born in 93 BC in Petra, Jordan. So this looks like where this Roman Pisto story comes in, and there may be some truth in it if this family lineage is accurate, that we have this Jason of Idumea, who's an uncle of King Herod the Great, and Amos Flavius, Mattathias Flavius, Josephus Flavius. So this is definitely almost identical. Almost identical in the names: Jason of Idumea, Mattathias of Judea, Mattathias, I can't say that properly, of Judea, and Asmoneus of Judea, or Amos of Judea. So that's where this link comes into the Vespasian line and the Flavius name coming from Idumea. This family line of the Flavius name from Vespasian and Titus is showing that it could possibly be from the lineage of the Idumean side of the Herod family. Maybe through Herod's sister or his brother, because these names are very similar, and I think they may have been changed. This was their Roman name and not their Judean name. If this is right, and it's somewhere here around the time of Josephus Flavius and Jana Flavius, there's an offshoot from the Idumean family that may have, like I said, been one of Herod's brothers or sisters or aunts or uncles, and they have then married back into this Herod Polio line. So Vespasiana Pola is said to be the daughter of Herod Polio, and her father was called Vespasius Polio, and they're saying that was his Roman name, and his name of Herod Polio was his Idumean family name, or his Judean family name, and that Titus and Vespasian were descendants of Herod. But if we follow his father's name, the Flavius name, and the similarities between the Idumean line of this Amos, Mattathias, and Josephus, it looks like it's quite possible that Vespasian and Titus were full-blooded Idumean Edomites from the Herod family. And that's just going on this family lineage from this website. So we're simply looking at the family line of King Herod Polio of Chalcis, who's said to be the grandfather of Vespasian. It's not saying that here. This is just his family line, and the irony of these names popping up like this through Jason of Idumea, Amos or Asamoneus are very similar. Patronus, don't know where that name comes in, but it's one they use a bit later on. Sabinus, Tertulla, Verus. So Annius Verus or Julianus Calpurnus Piso. So let's have a look at their family line. So Sextus Julius Caesar, Gaius Julius Caesar, so the Piso line comes from the Caesar side. On this side we have Mariamne Aria, and she is from the Herod side. So here we have this Mariamne, the fourth of Aria. So there may be some truth to the family lineage of the Roman Piso story. The person who wrote that's name isn't actually Roman Piso. He's just, that's his pseudonym. And I don't trust the story because of its link to the writings of Bruno Bauer, and that Bruno Bauer said that the Gospels and everything were made up by this family. The reason, look, it's possible. Anything's possible, really, but I don't trust this Rothschild background to it, and I can't see anything but good coming from people's belief in Jesus and these scriptures, because it's something that they've been battling in society for however long it's been since they've changed our timelines and our date. We don't know how long that is. And they hate it with a passion, and they hate it for a reason. But I do think there could, now looking at this, possibly be some truth in the family origin from the Idumean Herod side. This is where it gets a bit confusing because they have certain name change. So this is Salome of Judea. Salome of Judea was Herod's sister. So her mother was Cypros the first of Nabatea. Her father was Antipater of Judea. And her daughter was Bernice of Constabarus. So this is another Herod line that's, so that's her mother. Her father was King Herod the first of Judea on her father's side. So her father was Aristobulus. So that's Herod's son. Her mother was Bernice of Costobarus, who was his cousin via his Herod's sister Salome. So this line is a Herod line. So any of these names which have tied in before that don't look Herod, they are because via Salome of Judea. So on her Mariamne's father's side, Marcus Titus Flavius Sabinus, Vespasius Polio, Vespasiana Pola, And we have the Flavian Jana Flavius, Titus Flavius Petronus, Titus Flavius Sabinus. So this is a Herod line. Vespasius Polo, they've married in this Herod line here. On the father's side, we are related to the Caesars, Julius Caesar. But through some of the female Plancia Munatia, let's check out these female lines. No. Paulinus, this name comes back. Piso. So originally this Piso name sort of starts out from the Julian family, but it ends up a Herod name. So let's go check their children. Claudia Piso, Pompeia Plotina, Domitia Lucilla, Aria Fadilla, and Aria Antonia. So Claudia Piso on the father's side, this seems to be from the Nero family. Appius Claudius Nero goes back to Sabinus, Crassus, so Gaius Julius Sampsigaramus, Silas. So this person, priest king of Emesa, Silas the third, Claudia Piso, Titus Flavius Sabinus. This is the Herod line here through the Salome, Herod's sister. And we have Gaius Julius Alexo, king of Emesa. Who's his father? Priest king of Emesa. Here we go. Bernice of Costobarus. Her mother was Salome, Herod's sister. These names here are Herod. Aristobulus of Judea. So this guy's been married in with the Herod line. Drusilla Urania, princess, that's his mother. Can't see anything on her side, but then I don't know, because then, so both sides here of Gaius Julius Sampsigaramus, Silas III, are from Herod lineage. They're also Roman and Parthian, but they've joined in together. These beasts have combined their royal families. Gaius Julius Longinus Soamus. So his mother, Claudia Balbia Commagene. So we can't trust that lineage anymore because we know Herods have married into it. Same with this line. This Piso bloodline, Herod, king of Judea. This is coming from the mother's side. This is Salome Judea, Herod Judea, Vespasiana Pola, who is Vespasian's Flavian side. Arius Antonius Calpurnus Piso. From this side we have Julius Caesar. From this side we have the Idumean Herods. And on this side, I'm not too sure, we have probably a mixture. Nothing I can really see there, but I without a crystal ball and clairvoyance, I can't really go any further than what I have. Alright, so let's go back and follow a different line. So we'll go through his Titus' daughter Sabine, her children. one of the family lines. We have Julius Sabine. This is a Flavius Vespasianus Herod line. On the father's side, Titus Flavius, another Herod line. So here we go, they've kept it in the family there. Child Eutropia the Syrian. How are they a Syrian? Probably from the mother's line. So this is the Herod line. Gordiana. Balbus. So they seem to, this line keeps coming up. Marcus Antonius. They're married into another line. Semporina Romana. Fausta. Okay, so this Fausta name's coming up. Titus Flavius Sabinus, Herod line. On the mother's side, the Syrian line here. Maximus Herculeus. Flavia Maxima Theodora. Constantia of Rome. So on Constantia of Rome, on her father's side, Flavius, Herod, Jordiana, not sure about them, but they've obviously married into this family now. So Constantia of Rome, so we have here Titus Flavius Sabinus, that's a Herod line. Julius Sabine comes from this Flavius Piso Vespasius line. That's on the mother's side. On the father's side, Flavius Sabinus, Titus Flavius Sabinus. So that's another Herod line. How many of these others are related? I have no idea. Lysianus of Rome. So Constantia of Rome was his mother. It's got Herod, Flavian background on the mother's side. On the father's side, Armenian. So I'm going to check out Constantine the Great's family now. So on his father's side, he's got all this Julius Sabine, Titus Flavius, this Flavian Herod line. On his mother's side, Titus Flavius, Julius Sabine. So this family here is pretty much the same as this family here on the mother's side. Constantius III of Rome. Flavius Eusebius. I think that's supposed to be Constantine's brother. Flavius Julius Constantius II of Rome. Flavian Herod line. Crispania is another line that comes into it, another family name. So we have Flavius Valerius Constantius I Chlorus of Rome, and he is from a Flavian Herodian background on his father's side. On his mother's side, Claudia Crispina. So we have some of these names that are popping up. And the Basino line is a Flavian line again. Sabinus Flavius. Severus, Emperor of Rome. And I think there might even be some links to Severus. Fulvia Pia, Pius. Yep, here we go. Titus Vespasianus. This one, Matidia the second. So Severus of Rome is related to the Flavian family. I'm not sure about this side. Okay, so I'm going to look up this Matidia. Okay, so Matidia is a Flavian from her father's side. Julius Sabine. Vespasius, so that's Herod. Gaius Salonius Matidius Petronius. Now this Petronius name keeps coming up. Don't know who they come from. From her mother's side, Salonia Matidia. Crispiana, which comes from the Piso Julian side. Rufus. So that's another name that keeps coming up. And they come from the... Let's have a look at her child. Lila Major. Fulvia Pia. Severus, Emperor of Rome. So we've got this unknown line here, and we've got this Flavian line, Vespine Apollo, which we know is to be a Herod. So we have this Aquilin Bishop of Lyon, and we go back into his family tree on his father's side. We have Urania of Chalcis, going back to his father, Imbilicus of Chalcis, Julius Aurelius, rival Emperor of Rome. His was his grandfather. If we go right back, we have Gaius Julius Sampsigramus, who was a Herod. Claudia Piso. So here we go. There's this Herod line here. Again, yeah, there we go. Gaius Julius Longinus Soamus, and he's related to these Pergamus Herods. Sampsigramus the first of Emesa. Gaius Julius Alexio, king of Emesa. We have Aristobulus of Judea. Bernice, another Herod there. So, these Herods have married into these bloodlines, and they're well established in the Roman elite now. They're becoming established into the church bishops. Aquilin, Bishop of Lyon. And as I said, Antipas was banished to Lyon, and so was Archelaus, Herod. So we don't know what kind of political positions or financial positions they established in Lyon, or whether their grandchildren moved there to be part of whatever they had going on there. But we do know that these Radahite Jews from the Silk Road were based there, and they were the merchants of the Silk Road. So we have this other Idumean connection. So we have this aristocratic bloodline going through the church, going through the kings, and we have this banking Idumean line, which then goes into the wealthy families of Europe and the banking elite. So Aquilin, a bishop of Lyon, had a son named Rusticus, a Saint Bishop of Lyon, or Lyons, and his mother was probably a mixture of Constantius of Rome. There's another Flavian line. So here we have the link to the Frankish kings, and we have Clodomir IV, king of the Franks, and you see his lineage going back to the king of the Franks and the Britons, Boudica, possibly. But anyway, Genbord the Franks, it's Ripuaries. And this person's father was the king of the Franks, and his mother, possibly Fausta, was of the line of the Herods. So they've married into the Frankish kings as well. And this goes across the board. I mean, possibly Fausta, but I mean, there's Eastern Frankish kings, there's Western Frankish kings, and all of them have married into this lineage. So their child, Merogius, Franks. Okay, so his father has this Herodian line now. Doesn't say the mother. So who did he marry? Was it one of these family lines? The son? Again, we don't know who the mother is. So when did this woman start riding out of the wilderness on the dragon? And if the church in Rome, in its initiation, was just a group of people following scripture or following the philosophies of Christ, and then at some point his family took over the Roman church, and she was in the wilderness, in the world of Rome, the church, and she was whoring on with the Mystery Babylon religion. And if I will read the list of popes and their different doctrines, and we can see that this church became corrupted very early on. So now this church, who's gone into the wilderness to flee from the dragon, has come out riding it. And I just want to show you this family crest of the Sforza family, who are one of the 10 black nobility Illuminati families, apparently. And they've got on their family crest, or their heraldry, this dragon eating a person. And we can see from other versions of this heraldry that this person is actually a woman, and because she has breasts. And it's an interesting symbol to use, because the dragon with the crown, and it's actually eating the woman. She's not riding it. We have an old Sforza logo. They also have what looks like the hagel bird. You know, this bird. The hagel bird has 2 heads, I think. But anyway, this dragon doesn't have a crown at this moment. Only the bird does. So according to Wikipedia, the House of Sforza coat of arms is formed combining the imperial eagle with a depiction of a basilisk, commonly referred to as a serpent devouring a child. Well, if it's not devouring a woman, it's devouring a child. And we know that the dragon goes after the child, and in this picture, it's actually eating the child. So, is that just them laughing at the scripture of the Revelation where it chases the woman with the child, but it says that the man-child is taken up. So, you know, they're laughing at they think that they've devoured the child. This version actually does look like a woman has breasts, but if it says that it's a child, then it must be a child. But child or woman, it's still the same symbology of the dragon going after the woman and the child. Anyway, I could spend hours and days and weeks trying to find out these genealogies. What is clear is that these Flavian Herod families did intermarry with the Roman elite, and they also intermarried with the royal family of the Parthian Empire. And these three beasts have all merged together. And if you start to then research the origins of the early European royal families, you will find that they all relate to these Roman families that have been taken over by this Herodian line. We have the Merovingian dynasty. It was the ruling family of the Franks. So this family of Franks from the middle of the 5th century until the 751, they were married into the Roman Herodian line. And these are said to be the bloodlines of the black nobility of the Holy Roman Empire and the Roman Church, as later on the popes all were from these Medici, Farnese, Sforza families that rule in the shadows today. We know these lines have all been married into this Herod family, this Idumean bloodline. So it says this bloodline is harder to track because it weaves in and out of the other 12 bloodlines. There are many surnames which are part of this bloodline, including the Smith family. However, I can give one very prominent one, the Sinclair family. So, you know, like they've changed their names several times throughout history. They've even changed history and they've changed times. And they're saying that their bloodline is that of Jesus. So a list of families descending from Clovis and Charlemagne. So Charlemagne's pretty much in every single royal house's family tree of Europe, including the royal family of the United Kingdom. So here is a list of noble families who can trace their ancestry back to Charlemagne, and by this also to Charles Martel, Pepin of Herstal, Pepin of Landen, Clovis I, Childeric, Merowig, and some older mythical ancestors like Pharamond, Suno, Parias and Toxandria, Parias of Toxandria. So Belgium and Luxembourg, all of these families trace from this line. France, Germany, Netherlands, UK and Ireland, Spain and Portugal, Italy, Scandinavia, and all these other countries. And even if you don't believe that these people are a Herod bloodline, what we do have is nepotism, and it's the practice among those with power or influence of favouring relatives or friends, especially by giving them jobs. And these people don't marry outside of their families. Okay, so we've had this nepotistic bloodline ruling over us for possibly 2,000 years, and probably longer because it went further past the BC timeline. So, you know, it's enough now. We've had enough of these people trying to herd us and control us and just kill us at their whim when there's too many of us, that, you know, too many that they're afraid of keeping their power positions. I can only show you what I can find, and there's no doubt I could be here for such a long time trying to research this stuff, but what I can show you, and I believe, is what the Bible's talking about with these beasts. And, if this Roman Piso story is right, I don't see why they would be so accurate with describing themselves as beasts and monsters, to be honest, because they are beasts. There is the dragon, banking, Herod bloodline, the Idumean, the red, it's Idumean, so it's not necessarily just Herod. It's these Idumean bankers that went out on the Silk Road and gained power through Venice and moved into Italy, who were in partnership with these Herodian, Idumean, and Parthian families and Roman, and they worked together against us. They worked together against the people of the earth and the saints of God. They treat us and they believe that we are soulless and that they have the right to treat us any way they like. So this is Klaus Schwab's advisor. Allow me to introduce Klaus Schwab's top advisor, Professor Yuval Noah Harari. Humans are now hackable animals. The whole idea that humans have this soul or spirit and nobody knows what's happening inside them and they have free will, that's over. This is their attitude towards us. And it's disgusting. I mean, what do they think they are? They've had how many thousand years of advantage over people with all the money in the world, all the power in the world to do what they want, and they've used it for what? They're evil. They've turned this world into a cesspool. If we're going on biblical prophecy, it's the beast that gives all of the other beasts their power. It's this red Idumean dragon beast. And I believe that power is through banking, through the bankers of the Silk Road. And the family genealogy is important to show us exactly what this means, but it's not important to being born of the Spirit. So if we're of the Spirit, we are not of the world. So this website Fab Pedigree that I'm using, just found this other one, Family Trees GenoPro. And so I mean, they can't be 100% correct. I would hope that they are getting their information from historical records and things like that, but they can't be 100% incorrect either. And a lot of this information's out there now of ancient records of family lineage, especially before. So in the Roman period, there's lots of information. And then supposedly around the fall of the Roman Empire, it's hard to find information, and until the more Middle Ages, the more modern time. And this sort of makes me suspect with the changing of history and times that possibly they've added or extended people or repeated people's names and different things to fill in that gap. I don't know about that. I'm going to look into that. But, like as I said, most of this information has to be correct on who these families were, their children. And we can see that this Herod line has married into all of these family, royal aristocracy, royal houses of the ancient Roman world. And now, as a Christian, this information is really important, because it shows that this Idumean descendant of Esau, the family, has integrated into every single royal family in the European and other royal families, I'm sure, in other areas world. And that has impacted our entire history and our entire lives and how we look at the world today. Our entire worldview is based on what these people wanted. And they're still, this Herod family is obsessed with breeding within their own family. You can see that early on with the family, and in the Holy Roman Empire, we can see that they're obsessed with keeping within their own family and with bloodlines and keeping their money to themselves. It's like the Queen breeding her royal corgis. She's also obsessed with breeding her royal family. And as we know that the princes, the young family have married, they try to pass them off as commoners, but there's nothing common about them, and they all relate back as cousins or whatnot. Going back to Esau, Esau wanted to murder Jacob because he sold his birthright to Jacob for a bowl of lentils. And it was his obsession to take back the blessing that was given to Jacob by his father Isaac. And yes, Jacob did trick him out of it, but Esau didn't really care for it either. He'd gone off and disgraced his family by marrying Canaanites and Hittites, and his parents were very upset with him. But he thought that blessing should be his and that he should inherit the promise that God had given to Abraham. And this is a major piece of information for people who believe in the Bible about this Herod family, because what it tells us is that these descendants of Esau are taking the inheritance for their own. They are telling, and also they tell us this through their Babylonian Talmud, that they inherit the earth. So this earth is theirs to inherit, and they have taken back the land of Israel. So this dragon had control of Israel. It had taken back the inheritance in the time of the Roman Empire in Judea, but it lost control and it was cast into the pit. It was not able to control the promised land to Abraham. They tried to take it back through the Crusade Wars, and via I call them the Neo-Crusades, which is World War I, World War II, they were able to get the Balfour Declaration through the Rothschild influence in the British Parliament, and they got back their land of Israel. It cost us all family members and millions of lives, but they got back their promise. And I believe that this is when the dragon was unchained, and it's having its little season, because they're back in possession of the promised land. For those who aren't Christians and they're just following this information, it's just as important, because there's so many people out there who understand certain pieces of this puzzle, and they're blaming certain groups of people or pointing fingers at different ones, saying, oh no, it's the royal family, oh no, it's the Pope, oh no, it's the Jesuits, oh no, it's the Ashkenazis. It's all of them, because all of these people link back to this family. And those who have done their research will know this, and what I'm saying about this is true. The Jesuits are the same people, the popes are the same people, the royal families are the same people. So we can't break this up into sections and just blame one group. And we shouldn't be blaming anyone anyway. Really, what we should be doing is blaming ourselves or our ancestors for losing this information. Because at some point in time, we did know this. Like, there's been resurgences or the reformations of different things where people have understood a lot about what was going on. And then through Jesuit counter-reformations and different things, we've kind of given our own power over through corruption. And they know they've used this because they know who they are. And this is how Israel or people were corrupted in the past, perverting society. They did it in Germany before World War II. They perverted society and they broke it down. And they know it's just social experiments. They've got all their philosophers and that. They know how the human mind works. They know how we work. And they have now the technology to use algorithms and computers to try to keep 10 steps ahead of us. But there's something that they don't have that we do have as believers, and that's the Holy Spirit. And I believe that the Holy Spirit and God is revealing this information to us at this time, because it's the time of the awakening. We're all going to know. Everybody's going to know. And these people won't be able to hide in their little dark places anymore and do their little ceremonies, and it's all going to be in the light. So, you can go check out this information for yourself. I tend to get hooked on it. I end up having looked at different links of family lines for hours. It's not important in the sense that, the Bible does tell us not to go on with endless genealogies, but the Bible itself gives us genealogies of the line of David and Jesus. So obviously that's important to knowing who Jesus was. And I think that it's also important for us to know who these beasts are and who this dragon is. And I can't go back now. This is this information for me is the final nail into the whole church belief on who the dragon is. The seed of Pergamon, everything. It makes too much sense. So I hope you enjoyed this information. It was pretty boring going through these family lines, but it just shows that exactly who they are. And like I said, it could be hours longer just going through all the different branches, but all those branches link up to the royal houses today, the black nobility families, the popes of the church, the bankers, and pretty much the whole control grid that the tyrannous dictators that we live under. Thanks again. We'll see you in the next video.